Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the E-Conclave Vision from Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vihar. Um, our principal, Punita Nehru, will be initiating the program in just a few seconds. Punita, ma'am, over to you.
Sai Ram, my most humble salutations at the lotus feet of our Divine Master, Bhagwan Shri Sathya Sai Baba, and a Sai Ram to all. It is my proud privilege to announce the start of the school conclaves region of in collaboration with our dynamic alumni. It is a series of webinars wherein we will be inviting various dignitaries to the school platform to share their views, life stories, and much more to show the path to the generation next. The first speaker in this region is none other than 3 times Nobel Prize winner nominee, Miss Evelyn Lindner. Who better than her as an ambassador of peace to start this amazing event? Miss Evelyn is the founding president of Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies and a co-founder of the World Dignity University Initiative. She has written many books, some of which are Making Enemies, Humiliation and International Conflict, Emotion and Conflict, How Human Rights Can Dignify Emotion and Help Us Wage Good Conflict, and Gender, Humiliation and Global Security. On behalf of the Sathya Sai family, I welcome you, madam. Next, I would like to introduce my 2 moderators, our ex-students of the school, very dynamic to young people. First is Dr. Siddharth Jain. He is an alumnus of 1992 batch, the first batch of the school, who did his MS and super specialization in gastrosurgery, presently working at the Apollo Hospital at Indore. His children are studying in our school, so he's a parent too. And he also is a recipient of the Science Student Award. One thing which I would like to tell the entire audience, about which we are all very proud, that he is the brother of none other than our martyr, Lieutenant Gautam Jain. So we welcome you, Siddharth. Next moderator is Tanishka Kanitkar. Again, a very dynamic girl. She's from the batch of 2018. She was the head girl of our school at that time, recipient of the Rajkumar Behati Award for the session 17-18. And presently she is pursuing BA Honours in Political Science from Miranda House, University of Delhi. So I will be handing over the charge to the 2 of them. But children of Sathya Sai, present Sathya Sai children, just one thing before I hand over. These webinars are very, very educative. Kindly be present there. Learn whatever you can from these amazing people who are, you are so fortunate to be interacting with them. And of course, end of these webinars, there's going to be a quiz which we will organize. And the first 3 winners are going to be given the iPads. So all the best to all the children. And over to Siddharth and Tanishka. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, everybody. And a hearty welcome to all the parents, students, alumni, and other people who are watching this live. And we'll be talking up with Evelyn. We'll be taking a couple of questions, me and Tanishka, and then we'll also be including some questions which the audience has asked, and then we'll have a slight surprise in the end, and that would be the program, how we are going to end it. So Evelyn, are you ready for the questions coming your way?
I'm ready.
Yeah, okay. So the first thing, which most of the audience and including me, there's a lot of confusion. So your book is Humiliation to Dignity, Future of Global Solidarity. That's a lot of heavy words. So how do you define dignity, and what is the essence of your book?
Thank you so much, dear Siddharth. I will now read the book to you. It's about 400 pages. Is that okay?
Oh, no.
I would like to start, before I come to your wonderful question, dear Siddharth. First, I would like to express my profound appreciation and gratitude to the host of this event, the Sathya Sai School in Indore, I was in Indore in 2017, and in honor of you, I wear my Indore scarf for you here. You see? So I would like to appreciate the Principal Punita Nehru who just spoke. Then my gratitude goes to our respected Swapnil Kotari, who inspired this event and who hosted our Dignity Conference in 2017 at the Renaissance University in Indore. And then I would like to greet somebody, Deepak Tripathi in the UK. He is with us now. He brought us all together. Greetings to you in the UK, dear Deepak. Then I would like to thank Shyam Bhatia, Firosa Anklesaria, and Chachi for making these amazing questions that you prepared for me. And then I would like to really appreciate you, Dr. Siddharth and Tanishka, for being my wonderful, wonderful moderators and friends. I told you, Tanishka, I want to be your sister. So,
of course.
But I like to really, particularly to greet the 15 to 17-year-old students that I know will be with us, are with us now. And it is an honor for me to be with you today. Let me start with something very, very serious. I would like to start by apologizing to you, dear young friends. You inherit a world in great peril. You carry more responsibility on your shoulders than any other generation before you in all of human history. You will have to grow up faster than previous generations because you will have to solve problems that none of our ancestors faced. As I see it, only if we, the human family on this planet, unite now, we will survive the onslaught of the huge ecological crisis soon to come. The coronavirus pandemic is just a small prelude. I therefore want to apologize to you. You would have deserved to be born into a much more welcoming world. So this was my greeting. It was not very, I will end our hour with a very positive note, but I would like to really start with drawing your attention to the severity of the situation. So now to your question, dear Siddharth. As I said, now I start to read about 400 pages if you have time. But I will send you the manuscript when it's ready. Everyone who wants to have the manuscript, please contact me. I will send it to you. I will give it to you as a gift. I give it out as a gift. From our website, humiliationstudies.org, you can download my description of my global life. I have been living globally, I call it like that, for 45 years, which means I'm at home on all continents. And wherever I go, I observe how dignity and respect are being yearned for by an increasing number of people. It is not by accident that recent revolutions have been named dignity revolutions. Second, let me make clear that I talk about equal dignity, not just dignity, like in the core sentence of the human rights ideals, namely that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Third, equal dignity cannot be defined like a law of nature. It is embodied. When we see a person who keeps her head down in painful subservience, we see humiliation. When a person sticks her nose up too high, we see arrogance. Equality in dignity is an orthopedic challenge of the art of standing upright. Somewhere in the middle between up and down. It is when I look in your eyes, dearest Tanishka and dear Siddharth, when I look into your eyes in dignified humility as fellow human being who shares the same tiny home planet with me. This is equal dignity to me, embodied in the body. But fourth, I have thought for many, many years about dignity and why it, and when I look at our world, I wish we would not need isms like socialism, capitalism, any ism. But perhaps if we need an ism, I thought I make an ism. I make it from dignity, ism, dignism. Okay, what would dignism mean from you? And I will read for you my definition of dignism. Dignism describes a world where every newborn finds space and is nurtured to unfold their highest and best potential, embedded in a social context of loving appreciation and connection, where the carrying capacity of the planet guides the ways in which basic needs are met. It is a world where we unite in respecting human dignity and celebrating diversity, and where, on the one hand, we prevent unity from devolving into oppressive uniformity, and, on the other hand, keep diversity from sliding into hostile division. Dignism means loving global unity in diversity. So that was my first question.
So that was a wonderful definition of dignism. I hope most of the students and so, in spite of you beginning on a very pessimistic note about the present generation living in the times of Corona, which is probably the first danger we are seeing, probably this, if we live by this dignism, we would be in a better place. And so this comes to the second part, that humility is a very tricky thing. So, you get
Humiliation,
humble.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, I'm talking about humility. Humility is a very tricky thing. You get humble only after you are humbled. So a good amount of stress is always important. It brings out the best in whatever profession you are. Do you think that humiliation can also help in some way uh, for being successful?
Thank you so much, Desidert, for this question, because this is an extremely important question. I meet it everywhere. First, there is a huge difference between humility and humiliation. Humility is, dignified humility is what we want. Humiliation is what we don't want. So I will explain now. I would like to cut your question into two. The first part is that a good amount of stress may be helpful. And this is true. Astronauts lose bone mass when in orbit because there is not enough gravitational pressure of stress on their bodies. We all need inspiring amounts of stress, and that is true. And let me make a confession now. I tell you, I'm very stressed just now, and still it makes me very happy. What is the reason for my stress? I tell you, India has such a vast and ancient culture, and I am like a small child in the face of you all. In the coming minutes, I might fall into so many cultural traps which I do not even know exist. Therefore, dear Tanishka and dear Siddharth, please do not humiliate me. Take me by your hand like your little sister and prevent me from falling. Please stop me immediately if I say something offensive or stupid. Only if I can trust you to protect me will the stress of talking to you be enjoyable stress. So I also need to confess that I'm not an expert who looks down on you and on others and finds it useful to humiliate others. No. I work very closely together with the Global Dignity Fellowship of more than 8,000 people that I nurture since 2 decades, together with, for instance, the director of this global family. Her name is Linda Hartling, and she's with us now from Oregon. She is in Oregon. And the first thing I did when you invited me was to go into dialogue with Linda and many other members of our Dignity family who are with us now from all around the world. So holding hands in mutual loving solidarity, this is our methodology. Only in that way can we all enjoy good stress and give our best, I think. So now comes the second part. You asked whether, humiliation can be useful, can play a useful role for success. And now allow me to become very, very serious to you. I strongly advise to look for dignified and dignifying sources of growth-fostering stress rather than turning to humiliation as a source of supposedly good stress. Humiliation is an unacceptable violation of dignity, and the fact that some people are not destroyed by it or survive it does not mean that it is a useful path. It is vastly optimal path at best. In the past, the argument of the usefulness of humiliation has been widely employed by colonizers and slaveholders, to say it very bluntly. Routine humiliation was employed to maintain the power hierarchy between masters and underlings. The fact that this mindset still survives today in some corners of this world, in my view, is not a sign of progress. There is a lot of research on this topic. For instance, regarding different forms of pedagogical approaches in parenting. There is the strict father model of parenting, or black pedagogy, as it is called in Germany, which uses humiliation in child rearing to make the child tough. What this produces is childhood trauma per design, stunting the capability for empathy already in small children. It produces obedient subordinates. Only what is called the nurturant parent model fosters responsible and aware citizens. Furthermore, we know very well that trauma is a communal experience, and that it can be handed down transgenerationally from generation to generation. This means that by using humiliation on children in the hope to produce successful adults, what we do is producing a traumatized society. So, humiliation? No. Dignified humility? Yes. Subordinate, obedient humility? No.
That's good.
Going forward, we sure all will look forward to dignified humility and not humiliation. With that, in one of your interviews, ma'am, you talked about Norway and how it upholds the idea of equality and dignity that you have never seen before in any other country. So, what is it that is different, and what should the other countries must learn?
Wow, you have made so interesting questions, you know. Thank you so much, dear Tanishka, my sister. So over the past 45 years, you know, of living globally, I have always looked for places that manifest the equal dignity that the human rights ideals promise. And I find it in indigenous communities, not just in Norway, but Norway is interesting. The reason for why Norway is worth paying attention to is that it was capable throughout the past centuries of emerging from a culture of proud, independent, and even violent Viking warriors and adventurers, and it moved towards a culture of equality and dignity, and they call it likeverd. And they combined it with dugnad, which means communal cooperation, local solidarity, and global solidarity. Many might know the Nansen passport. Elsewhere in the world, I observe a deep sense of unequal worthiness as a norm, even where human rights ideals are subscribed in theory. And this includes, you know, places like France. Despite of its authorship of the maxim of liberté, égalité, and fraternité, even where I'm now, the cultural heritage of Germany is characterized by a rather stark social hierarchy. So why is Norway special? It's very interesting. It's because it was so poor and so far away. It is only during the past decades that Norway found oil, that it became rich. Before that, it was utterly poor, a country of poor farmers and fishers at the mercy of an often unforgiving nature, which forced them to maintain a respectful dialogue with this nature. And this closeness to nature has created a kind of wisdom in Norway that is lost in many other so-called developed countries. It is there in indigenous peoples. It's a wisdom that I cherish. But the closeness to nature is not all. Norway's marginal geopolitical location on the planet and its poverty has protected it. Unlike India, of course. It's the opposite of India in that case. In the past, no empire ever had, liked to conquer Norway. It was not worth it. And force it into this kind of submission that underlings would have to endure in hierarchical empires. So Norway was simply too poor and too far away. When Denmark ruled Norway, only very few Danes felt inspired to actually live in Norway. Nobody wanted to be there. So during the past decades, after Norway found oil and became rich, however, The younger generation in Norway is no longer accustomed to dialogue with nature, and this deprives them of the experiences their parents and grandparents shared. In addition, while Norway was never really conquered and colonized before, its newfound riches now make it attractive to being colonized for the first time now, colonized by the forces of globalization. So this worries me, and I warn my Norwegian friends every day. Then you ask, what can other world regions learn? Let us take the pilots of a plane as an example. Pilots in a plane have a clear leadership role vis-à-vis the passengers when in the skies. Utter hierarchy and stark inequality characterizes this relationship, as roles and authority are of crucial importance. This does not mean, however, that the pilots should look down on their passengers as lesser beings. This is the difference. It is the difference between the role and the essence of a human being. This differentiation is what you see succeed in Norway. So in other words, dear Tanishka and dear Siddharth, even though, dear Tanishka, you are younger than me, I have 2 doctorates and you are still working on yours, I will never look down on you as a lesser being. I do the opposite. I cherish you. I cherish all other people on this planet as my beloved family. Nobody is lesser than me.
Ma'am, we equally cherish you, and it's an honor to hear you right now. But talking about countries and their economy and their restricted geographical locations, digital economy is something that we are still aware of. But the idea of a dignity economy is something that you coined and you brought in the forefront. Now, could you explain the essence of this concept in the current context? And also, do you think that the developed countries are role models for a dignity economy?
Yes, you're right, dear Tanishka. In 2012, I wrote a book, and its title was A Dignity Economy, Creating an Economy that Serves Human Dignity and Preserves Our Planet. My first thought and advice to you, especially for the young students who are listening, is to be extremely careful when you hear phrases such as developed country or success or progress or wealthy or rich. I have big doubts there. Be very careful. So I will try to explain. So all around the world, I observe the church of economism, how I call it, the reduction of all social relations to a market logic as a new belief system. It has colonized minds and hearts during the past decades everywhere. I meet almost religiously money-minded individuals who reinforce existing vastly unequal power structures by individualizing systemic problems through blaming the victims of being lazy or lacking resilience or entrepreneurship. But lately, I also meet more and more people who tell me that they no longer believe in the promise that a money-based market can be a source of well-being for all in the long term. The coronavirus pandemic glaringly exposes this situation. Everywhere in the world, the caring work that keeps a society afloat in the long term is badly remunerated, while predatory growth pays. A study in the UK, for example, revealed that elite city bankers earning 1 million plus points bonuses, they destroy £7 of value for every pound they create, while hospital cleaners create over 10 pounds in value for every pound they receive in pay. There's a well-known Norwegian economy professor, Kalle Mune. He was once asked whether social welfare is affordable, and he responded, "There is one thing we as humanity cannot afford, that is so many hyper-rich people." So I asked, what research also shows, and this is, I think, very important, that the concept of motivation through money is humiliating. It devalues and crowds out what really counts, namely motivation through love. Money is an extrinsic motivator that incentivizes free riding. Only intrinsic motivation supports its own goals. Money must serve, not lead. Money must serve love. So I introduced to you Linda Hartling before. She is with us from Oregon, and we have talked about your wonderful questions beforehand. And I asked her what she thinks about your question. And she says, she described to me how she thinks systemic dignity should look like in a society. She said it should mean policies, practices, traditions, attitudes, beliefs, and social arrangements that affirm and nurture the equal dignity of all humans, providing for their full development and participation in society. And Linda sees some light at the end of the tunnel. In the presently unfolding coronavirus pandemic, she says, we are seeing signs of more dignified economic practices when we see leaders, for example, in New Zealand, put the health of their communities ahead of profit. And then they discover that human health makes economic health healthy for all people. Thank
So this
you.
is something like, the Bhutan people have the most happiest index of all, which is more than the GDP of the best of the West countries. So now coming to the next question, India is a land of diversity. We have many diverse traditions and customs, and probably that is one of the things which have uh, let us down at times, if in terms of material progress. But how do you think that our society or government can work towards ensuring equality and elevating human dignity with particular reference to India?
Thank you so much, Desiderat. Thank you. You have made so difficult questions. Please, now I will start reading again in my book about 2 days. Is that okay? Yes, I'm aware, from my time in India, from my knowledge, I'm aware that the notion of dignity is very sensitive in India. Names such as Gandhi, just like that of Mandela in South Africa, are shining beacons of dignity all around the world, outside of the countries. And when the situation becomes much more complicated, the closer one gets to the inner circle. So, let me therefore speak to India as part of the global family. After 45 years of being at home on all continents, I have seen with my own eyes that it is impossible for us as humanity to continue with business as usual. We destroy the very foundation of our livelihood by making money. We cut the tree of life for making a living. Some of you will get angry at me now. You will say, but look at all the progress in the past decades, and we in India also want to become a developed country. Do not take this from us. I will answer by using the metaphor of Titanic for us as humanity. But first, I think you will agree with me that it is easy to mistake a feast for ordinary life as long as the party lasts. Throwing a party cannot last forever. Success that is achieved by way of overuse of resources is short-term and cannot be mistaken as success or progress. This is exactly the party that is being thrown on the luxury floor of the cruise ship Titanic, where the people of the so-called developed countries, the so-called global north, live. There they throw this party. When they see cracks in their cabin, they repair them with the best intentions, but they overlook the holes they create in the hull of the ship where all the poor people live. To this party, only a few privileged are invited, and the rest, like India, hopes to pass through the door soon. But unfortunately, this party is thrown at the expense of future generations and the planet. The only solution is to change the design and the course of the ship, because there is the iceberg coming. We all overlook that. In other words, we are in a radically new situation now. We understand that it is an illusion that our world is a cruise ship. In reality, we are all together in a lifeboat. A tiny coronavirus teaches us that our weapons cannot save us from it. Nor can money. Direct solidarity is the way. Solidarity that is free from the barriers that money-based contracts erect between people. I use dignity as a word to connote the challenges of this radically new situation. As I said before, history does not go in circles. We are in a new situation. We cannot base ourselves on the lessons of the past. Some lessons, yes, not, but we have to think completely new.
So thank you very much. That was that would, I think the students, I know the students must be hearing this intently, because there's also the iPad prizes to be won after in the quiz afterwards. So we all saw this turmoil recently in America. That was the Black Lives Matter movement, and that was very unfortunate. So right from Nazi Germany to today's USA, why do you think that discrimination and racism is always a perpetual challenge to humanity?
Thank you so much, dear Siddharth. Yes, again, 2 days and I will read all my work. The first book I published in 2006, I can read to you now. So, but because, it's a very long story, I look at the entire history of us, the species Homo sapiens, in my analysis. And in my view, this and what your question is embedded in long, big history. In my view, the significance of the so-called Neolithic revolution that began to unfold roughly 12,000 years ago matches the significance of present times. To me, there are two very huge turning points in human history. 12,000 years ago, it started, the first one, and now. And now we need to bring about similarly important adaptations as our ancestors, only this time more intentionally and better planned. Our ancestors developed so-called dominator societies, where competition for domination became the way of life. Now is the time to establish a globally united partnership society. The Black Lives Matter movement is embedded in this larger historical context. Since it is particularly relevant in the Anglo-Saxon world, and I did not grow up there, I would like to let Linda speak from Oregon. She shared with me her thoughts on this question. I read to you what she said. She said, dominators mobilize and hang on to power by finding scapegoats, emphasizing us versus them divides. Putting others down is an easy path to power for humiliation entrepreneurs. We Americans have not done the hard work necessary to fully recognize, repair, and heal the wounds of racial discrimination, some of it rooted in the history of slavery. Policing in America started out as a way to manage slaves. We need new systems of security that foster confidence and trust. So this was Linda. Thank you, Linda.
Ma'am,
you please
I think
call.
we all, sorry, my little sister Evelyn, I think we all want to learn more about your idea of dignity and humiliation and how would you want to take that forward towards global solidarity. On that note, we, as a student myself, and I am sure a lot of students who are watching us right now, even adults, are interested in knowing the vision behind the World Dignity University initiative. How do you think we can bring like a generational gap or a generational shift in values and tolerance for a better world of tomorrow?
The World Dignity University was launched as an idea in 2011 to invite all the learners and educators from all around the world to give their knowledge as a gift, all their knowledge connected to dignity as a gift to the world. So we are, at the moment looking for a person who is kind of holding this idea, and I am working all around the world to gather the people who would like to contribute. So this is a project that will last hopefully 100, 200 years after I'm gone. It's a long-term project. It wants to free education to dignity. And, I remember that you wanted to ask me also about technology and dignity. And this goes in there, this is related to that, to your question. When we look at the crisis, we need something new. We look at the crises today. We have a financial crisis, credit and banking crisis, environmental and ecological crisis, biodiversity crisis, housing crisis, health and well-being crisis, education crisis, spiritual and moral crisis, trust and trusting crisis, indifference crisis, fake news and faking crisis, reality crisis, populism and fascism crisis, coronavirus crisis. All of them lead to a generalized time of crisis. Underlying it all is the market, which makes, for example, fake news lucrative and quality news hard to get. Or, bad education is lucrative and quality education is hard to get. Stop hate for profit is a slogan that tries to be against it. And our World Dignity University initiative is also an initiative to do something about this. At this point, I want to thank somebody because it is the former head of the Club of Rome, Prince Hassan bin Talal, and he talked to me some weeks ago, and he suggested that I include the phrase cogiticide. And you all know the word suicide, I think. The suffix side comes from Latin and means killing. So suicide is the killing of oneself. So what we do as humanity at the moment is that we catalyze the degradation of our ecosphere, our environment, and our sociosphere, the social glue in our societies, our communities. And the result is that we embark in common sightlessness on our collective suicide as a species. And on omnicide, the killing, the annihilation of all life on Earth. This is what we do now as humanity. So therefore, I suggest that unleashing an artificial intelligence revolution after our steam engine revolution and computer revolution is not enough. Our task now, and the young people, please, we must manifest a global ethics revolution, a global dignity revolution. If not, artificial intelligence will turn out to be artificial foolishness, I fear. Rescuing our cogitosphere, the realm of thinking, rescuing our cogitosphere means desisting, refusing from blindly using terms such as artificial intelligence. We should speak of artificial sightlessness when we see a new manifestation of the well-known fog of war. Now, intelligence means finding the needle in the haystack. It is not intelligent to simply increase the haystack. So with the World Dignity University initiative, we want to increase the needle, not the haystack. So entirely new kinds of human rights may be needed in an age of neuroscience and neurotechnology: the right to cognitive liberty, the right to mental privacy, the right to mental integrity, the right to psychological continuity. My view, as long as we uphold competition for domination as a mindset and as a social and societal order, even moving to a new planet would not help, as we would soon devastate it as well. In this new context, the only realistic aim, in my view, is to work for global mutual trust and global partnership through unity in diversity and equal dignity for all. So I call on us to manifest the global dignity revolution. It's utopia, but it's the only utopia that can save us, according to what I see.
Ma'am, I think your idea of how technology influences dignity is a novel perspective to all of us to look at the positive aspects of technology as well. And I think it's a beautiful and very inspiring initiative that you have with the World Dignity University coming up. And all of us are looking forward to it. Moving forward, talking a little personally to your side, I think global recognition is vital to anyone's vision. And you being a 3-time nominee to the Nobel Peace Prize reflects your continued vigor towards your vision. What makes you fuel the fire of your passion for all these years and more?
So, this is how I see the situation of the human family after 45 years of global living. Where do we stand as humanity? This is what I see. We have dug ourselves into a multitude of perilous crises, both despite and because of what we call progress. We engage in systemic humiliation, ecocide and sociocide. We shred our relations with our habitat and with each other. This is what we do. At the same time, there is also an immense window of opportunity waiting for us to use. And this is what keeps me going. Unfortunately, so far, instead of recognizing the depth of the crisis, we are blind to the depth of the crisis. Unfortunately, instead of grasping this depth and grasping our historic opportunity to exit from the crisis, instead of doing that, it seems that most of us choose to stay short-sighted and myopic. And, this is, I hope really that you, the people, especially the young people listening now, that you will grasp this opportunity, because there is an amazing opportunity, a window of opportunity standing open. Some of you might know Eleanor Roosevelt. She played an instrumental role in drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was adopted in 1948. All my life, I have been preparing for the next Eleanor Roosevelt moment, waiting for another window of opportunity to open for dignity to get the attention it deserves. It would be great if the coronavirus pandemic could provide such a moment. So now I want to describe this wonderful opportunity to you that we have and that few people take in. I don't see that people take it in, really. So few people take in that our species, Homo sapiens, lives in a historical moment that is unparalleled in terms of opportunity. History, as I said, does not go in circles. For the first time in its history, humankind is in a position to succeed in bringing about the adaptations that are long overdue. For the first time, we, humanity, can fully appreciate our place in the cosmos. None of our ancestors could see the picture of the blue planet, the blue marble, from the perspective of an astronaut. Have you ever moved out of your home city and noticed that you see your home city, your place where you come from, in a completely new light when you look at it from outside? This is what happens to us as humanity, because we can see us from outside. It's huge. It's revolutionary. Unlike our forebears, we have the privilege of experiencing this overview effect with respect to our planet. An effect that helps us understand that we humans are one species living on one tiny planet. All the astronauts tell us there are no borders on planet Earth from space. This gives us the possibility to embrace biophilia. We can feel the ecology of the living taking place within one circumscribed biopoetic space that is shared between all beings, which is our blue planet. We have access to a much more comprehensive knowledge base about the universe and our place in it than our grandparents ever had. We have the good news that, from research, that human nature is neither good nor evil. Human nature is social, and much of human action depends on the ways constitutive rules frame relational context. In other words, the good news are that cooperation and solidarity in the world can be increased systemically through building the right systems, through building appropriate societal frames and institutions. We can do it. The other good news is that we have everything needed to establish this radically new constitutive frame that can make it work for our world society. We have everything needed. None of our forefathers and forebears had it. We have more than ever. We have everything to get out of our crisis. Now we have to do it. It's now. So as the world watches the heartbreaking coronavirus pandemic unfold, my hope is that I hope for an exponential change of heart so that global unity rooted in respect for local diversity becomes possible. The central question we face, and I want to put to you all, which we must ask and answer together, remains: how must we, humankind, arrange our affairs on this planet so that dignified life will be possible in the long term? How? My message to the young students: please honor the many dignifying traditions that grew within and out of India, and let the world learn from you. Have you ever heard about Ubuntu, the Ubuntu philosophy of Africa? It means I am because of you. I am because we are. And I know that there's a wonderful, wonderful Sanskrit saying, we are one world. The world is one family. Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam.
With that, I think after this live, we'll go back with a lot of positive emotions and thoughts in our mind, and we'll look through our relationships with each other, with our families, and everybody around us in a positive and a very good note. With your permission, Evelyn, I would also like to put up a question which we got from one of the audience of ours. His name is Mudit Maheshwari. Sir asked a question about how do you propose universal application of dignism when there is a difference or discrimination in terms of the resources which are divided in among different countries?
Could you say it slowly? Acoustically, I couldn't get your question.
All right. So one of the questions that we received from the audience is about whether the idea of dignism depends on distribution of resources, because considering that there is a discrimination in terms of the division of resources amongst different people as well as different states. So do you think dignism depends on resources?
I'm not sure whether you all know the commons dilemma. Have you ever heard about the commons dilemma? Your students, I really advise your students to study two dilemmas: the security dilemma and the commons dilemma. I think we will only survive as humanity on our planet if we solve the security dilemma and the commons dilemma. And we can solve both dilemmas by coming together as one family. The commons dilemma is when some goods or some resources that are basically the goods of everyone, when they are, how they are used, there is a problem with overusing it and destroying it. Let's say our planet is our commons. Humanity, it's our, we inherit it from our children, this planet, and we have to protect it and to be stewards of this planet together. What we do now is compete who can exploit it faster. So we destroy it. So we have to change completely, think completely new. And it's the image of the Titanic. The few on the luxury floor, they throw a party and they burn the planks of the hull of the ship to make a party, to make fireworks on the first floor. They burn the hull of the ship to make fireworks on the first floor. Okay, this is not sustainable. We will crash. The Titanic will go down. Okay, so we have to think completely new. We have to say we have to redesign the entire ship, and we have to change the course of the ship. This means really thinking much bigger than saying, okay, yes, it is as it is. There is the first floor. They are burning. We will all go down. No, we have to think much bigger and really think together. all together, how can we redesign this ship? We are on a lifeboat. How do you live together on a lifeboat? There also the luxury floor, or the people who think they're privileged and have a lot of money, and so they will go down together with all the rest. So we have to really think much, much, much bigger, all of us together. We are in a much, much bigger crisis. We cannot, fall back on solutions of the past. Some solutions, yes, like indigenous peoples, they can teach us the 7-generation rule. That is a lesson from the past, which is really worth reinvigorating now. The 7-generation rule, solutions need to be sustainable over 7 generations.
Evelyn, one thing which some of the audience have again propped up is, you have bullies at school, you have bullies at work, you have people who take joy in humiliating your peers and juniors. So how do you deal with them in a real life situation, in a school or at workplace? If you have a superior who is bullying, how do you confront them, or how do you make them understand that what is dignity, and how do we go about it?
I think it's important that the majority understands that bullying is not useful. Therefore, I noticed this. I told you about this research that shows that it is a wrong thought that humiliating makes tough and successful people. This is a thought from the past, and research shows that it does not work. So the first thing is to really convince everybody that to deal with each other in a dignified and respectful way is much more useful than humiliating people. So the usefulness of humiliation, first we have to get out of our minds. And the majority, as soon as the majority in a school or anywhere or in a society, as soon as the majority has understood that and has stopped believing in that, then they can, their way of being with each other will crowd out the other. They will become a minority. It's a question of minority and majority. The solution would not be to humiliate the humiliator. This would be applying the same solution. So the way of being with the humiliator is to lovingly contain them. I have worked as a psychologist for 7 years in Egypt, and I saw situations there always that impressed me. In Cairo, I lived in Cairo for 7 years. There was an accident, let's say, in the street, and 2 drivers got out and they fought immediately, and they shouted and insulted each other, and immediately about 10 to 20 young men came out of the offices, the tea shops, and they surrounded these 2 men. So they overpowered them in a way. They kept them physically apart so that they could not hurt each other, but they let them shout. And then they talked lovingly and respectfully to them. And after 10 minutes, everything was finished. Everybody drove off, and there was peace. So it needs a kind of global majority that holds those people who are, at each other's throats, who humiliate, to hold them. It needs a majority for that, who does it lovingly.
So we need to understand that as violence begets violence, humiliation begets humiliation. So we have to deal it accordingly. So now that we are at the end of this session, now there I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. Be prepared, and you have to answer them not after much thinking, and it has to be a very short answer. Okay, Evelyn. So the first one is, who is the person you look up to, your idol, at different stages of your life? Maybe say, if you divide everything into 3 stages, who was your ideal at various times?
I think the most important person who has ever influenced me, I would never use the word idol. that doesn't exist in my vocabulary really, but I can say that I have always looked up to my father. He has, and you have met him.
Yeah.
You have greeted him, and he is with us. Sorry. He has been traumatized and humiliated so thoroughly in the Second World War and what came after the Second World War, the displacement. He has been crushed and almost destroyed to a point that is almost unbelievable. And he has come out of this as a profoundly loving human being, a really dignified human being, full of love and deep humanity. and so this lesson, or this model that I have observed, and this is a very, very important motivator in my life. And then when I became older, I met many people, and I have a lot of I have a long list of people I admire. It ranges, of course. India, you have wonderful names. You have Gandhi, and as I said in the beginning, I'm very aware that the name of Gandhi is and also Mandela, that these names are shining beacons outside of their countries, but I'm aware of the shadows also that there are there, or the differences that are there. But then there are many other questions, and I really admire. There are a lot of men that we normally have in our minds, like Paulo Freire or others, but I really like to put emphasis on some women. For example, there is one woman who inspired the Nobel Peace Prize. This is Bertha von Suttner. Without her, Alfred Nobel would not have established the Nobel Peace Prize. Bertha von Suttner was one of the first peace activists, and she is the first woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906. So Bertha von Suttner, I think, is very, very interesting. She wrote an amazing novel, Lay Down Arms, Disarm, Stop War globally. And so this is a very good good model to look for. And then Eleanor Roosevelt. You need people at very crucial turning points in history who are lovingly taking the opportunity. Today, we have a lot of women. When we look at the coronavirus pandemic, we see that countries that are led by women are quite successful. So I have a long list, far back into the past, of names.
Yeah. So you can have some water if you want. I think
Thank
after
you.
speaking for an hour, you have passed your throat. So what do you like about India apart from Gandhi?
I also like Ambedkar. I like all the problems that also were connected with that struggle. So what I really appreciate is the love I see within families. I think in the West, in the UK, they had to establish a ministry for loneliness, a ministry for suicide. Imagine a country has to establish a stately organization that looks at the problem of loneliness and suicide. Why? Because the society has disintegrated. And I see it here in Germany, in every Western country. There is a disintegration which you do not see when you are in India and you are not outside of India. You do not know that. I remember from that is you do not know the values that you have. I remember the 2017. The young people always told me that they had three wishes. First, that they should be less straight-jacketed by traditions, by parents, by family, less, more freedom. The next was love marriage and no arranged marriage. And the next was money. So these three wishes, I'm not sure whether it's the same in 2020 in the young people. And I always explain to them, money and love, be very careful, because you have, if money leads, if you go for money first, you lose all love. You lose it. So please, take care, guard, protect, cherish, celebrate all the love that you have in Indian families, in Indian societies. That is very valuable, and much of it has been lost in so-called developed countries.
Yeah, so that is what India stands for: family values, traditions, and most of the audience will vouch for it. So we are having a long
You know,
list
you
of.
know, there is family traditions. I understand the young people who say, okay, they are too oppressive, and I advocate to not throw out the baby with the bathwater, by liberating yourself from oppression, to also throw out the love. No, the love, keep it. Try to get out of the oppression, but keep the love.
So we are having a lot of questions and comments, and the next rapid fire question would be: if you had to choose by one, would you be right or would you be kind?
Um, Kind first, because I think, if you are unkindly right, you will never be right. You will always be wrong.
So if you are kind, most of the times you are right.
No, just by being, if I feel I'm right, I need to be kind to be right.
Yeah. Any person from history whom you would have liked to met?
As I said, I have such a long
One person,
list.
one person, one person.
I would not know. I would not know. The list is too long. Say to me, when I look at India, there are so many names, so many names. I spent in 2017. I spent my 1 month in the Himalayas, in where there was the University of the Forest about 1,000, 2,000 years ago, something. So I would have liked to be in the University of the Forest about 1,000 years ago in the Himalayas.
So that's a very good thought. I mean, that's wonderful. So the last question is: would you like to visit Sathya Sai Vidya Vihar next time you are in Indore?
Pardon?
Would you like to visit our Sathya Sai Vidya Vihar?
Yes, of
When
course. What do you say? Of course. You are my home
that is
now. You are my family now.
so that is
I'm
very
your
good.
sister. Remember, I'm your little sister.
Okay.
With
Okay.
that, we look forward to welcoming you. So, as we have reached the climax of today's event, it is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks speech and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked really hard to make Srajan happen. I first would like to extend my most sincere thanks to Bhagwan Baba for making today's event a resounding success. Most importantly, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to our chief guest, Ms. Evelyn Lindner, who spared time from a busier schedule to grace the occasion. Today, we had an opportunity, or I would say, were provided with a novel lens to look at the world and its issues through the words of the ambassador of the peace. This will surely encourage us in our future endeavors to carve out a more fruitful life. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path. Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm also immensely thankful of the team behind this endeavor. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling weeks ahead of the penultimate date. It requires meticulous planning and a bird's eye for detail. This surely would not have been a success without the tireless efforts of Mr. Swapnil Kothari, President of the Old Sathya Sai Students Association, Mr. Shyam Bhatia, Ms. Firosa Anklesaria, Ms. Sachi Maheshwari, Ms. Shweta Malik, and Dr. Siddharth, who I have here along with me today. A special mention to our beloved and respected principal, Ms. Punita Nehru ma'am, for being the catalyst that stimulated us to create this conclave and give our best. Srajan is her brainchild that she handed over to us to nurture. We are grateful for you, ma'am, for offering us this opportunity to give back to our alma mater. I would also like to extend a heartfelt thanks to the Times of India Group, our collaborator for today's event, and our sponsor, Mr. Tarun Agrawal, and our sponsor for the quiz awards, Mr. Akhil Bandi, Mr. Vikas Bansal, and Mr. Gaurav Mehta. Thank you are also in line for Mr. Sagar, our one-man technical team who worked effortlessly behind the scenes to make this event a success. Last but not the least, a huge thank you to each one of you who joined us today and made this event memorable for us. I, on behalf of Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vihar Indore and the organizing team, extend my gratitude for your presence and involvement today. We value you and every moment that you aspire to stay in this temple of learning. We would not want this to be the last time we meet. So I encourage you all to look forward to your Sundays from now on, because I'm pretty sure the next guest to our conclave is someone who is going to surprise you. Till then, log into your emails and wait for the next announcement. Thank you and Sai Ram.